Right, well, the Premier League season's already underway. My goodness. And I want to start with a question from Nathan on X, because all the newly promoted sides are playing today, and Nathan says, considering two of the three promoted sides this year are fairly established Premier League teams, and the other side is Ipswich Town, do we have a chance of seeing a more competitive league this year, especially near the bottom of the table? What do you reckon, Visho?
I suppose yes, but then are we not just replicating the 2022-23 season when all those teams were in, a bar, Leeds United for Ipswich? Yeah, I feel like it will be competitive. I basically think this question is the league going to be better now that Sheffield United aren't sticking up the joint? That's basically the premise of the question, yeah. So we'll probably... Because last season was the goaliest Premier League season.
Right.
And goals are the good bit.
Yeah, they are.
But not when they're entirely against one team.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll get shared out.
Was last season the first season since something like the late 90s that all three promoted sides went straight back down?
Right.
Okay.
It's actually a rarer thing than you think with regards to all three promoted sides going straight back down, but of course they did. Sheffield United being one of them, Burnley being another.
Luton.
Luton, of course. Luton, yes, exactly, yeah.
Give them a mensch.
Well, I mean, but they've already been battered in the Championship.
Don't erase them from history.
We'll never see
them. They had a garden for a stadium. You don't remember?
We'll never see them again.
They played out of a home base.
When I say we, I very much mean the Premier League, because who knows? Fulham may well see them again at some point, but we shall see. Yeah, so it's a rare thing, but obviously Nathan's asking, Luke, that two of the sides that have gone up know their way around the league. Now, of course, when people say that, really, it's often a fan base know their way around the Premier League.
It doesn't really matter, does it?
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't mean anything.
The fans.
It's not like their old email address gets reactivated. Do you remember the fob's still the same, isn't it? Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
I mean,
so you got all the stuff.
Yeah, with Leicester though, I mean, I think there's enough there for a lot of the players and people involved in the club not to be fazed at all by the Premier League. So it's an interesting question, and it's one that I think we often ponder every year, really, in the Premier League.
I think it depends on how you look at it. I mean, obviously Nathan is said to focus specifically on the bottom of the table. I mean, 22-23, it was only Southampton that were really kind of cut adrift, and even they weren't cut adrift as much as Sheffield United were the following year. And then in 22-23, Leicester and Leeds were still kind of fighting for it till quite late on, weren't they? And then and Burnley really last season had a bit of a wag, didn't they? The tail wagged a wee bit, but ultimately nothing kind of came of it. And I suppose if you look at the numbers of it, Luton who relegated in 18th, they were 6 points behind 17th, and in the season before, Leicester running 2 points behind Everton in 18th, and Everton were in 17th. So I still think that's a very basic way of looking at it, though, because I think if we're looking at competitiveness in the league in general, I think you're looking at league title, top four, potentially a bit of European qualification. That tends to stimulate a bit of competitiveness, and then obviously relegation. Now, through that lens, it's probably difficult to make an argument the title race will be that competitive. You'll probably have 2, maybe 3 teams, maybe.
I'd say 3 would be generous, but
you might even only have one,
that.
right? I'd say top 4 is pretty interesting, pretty competitive.
Yep.
And I'd say there's probably 7 or 8 teams that could, and I stress could, go down, right? And if that's the case, I think it becomes really interesting. And what I'm trying to say is I don't think just looking at the league table after the final day gives you the story of how competitive it's been, because it goes on for a very long time. Some teams can look dead and buried. Pompey have done it. I think West Brom maybe done it over the years, and they come out of it, and that becomes its own narrative and makes things really competitive, because it gets to the point where every single game that team plays, there's a kind of story around it. So I think the other thing I would just add specifically to the relegation picture is that, you get a far less wriggle room for things like profit and sustainability rules if you've spent any of the previous 3 years in the Championship, right? I think the allowable loss drops by something like 22 million, I think, for each Championship season. So, for example, Southampton, who would have been out an allowable loss of 105 million, now only have an allowable loss of 83 million, which clearly comes into play when they're trying to attract players to the club. And I think the thing that makes it difficult for you to drag yourself out of it is the thing, like, if you do end up getting relegated, all the players you've brought in are on these deals where they're either kind of glorified loans or they've got release clauses and all the rest of it, and you get back to where you started. So I would just finish this point by saying I hope the 3 promoted sides make a better fist of it than Sheffield United and Burnley did last season. If they do that, the table becomes more competitive, I think. But it's far easier said than done. The haves and the have-nots is a big conversational point in English football, and for fairly obvious reasons. Vish, I don't know what you think about it.
Well, if you think about like last year, it felt like there were fewer points available at the bottom because they were being taken up at the top. Like specifically with Man City and Arsenal, their collective haul was such that they were almost doing a Chelsea with players with points.
91 and 89.
But what I think you're gonna see this season is that a lot of those teams in the middle are basically vying for the same 3 positions essentially from 6 to 8, with kind of ambitions of Conference League and maybe even Europa as well. And then, so because of that, I do think that it'll be a bit more congested in the middle, and for that reason, it might actually end up being more adrift at the bottom, but more teams adrift together at the bottom, if that makes sense. So we might end up in a situation where come February we've got a bottom 6, and it might even be that 20th is further adrift than the other 5. But I feel like that in itself will be competitive, because really, like, you never really get the as you often do in the Championship, where single digit points split like top and bottom. But I think essentially the league's going to fracture into three very specific areas. It's going to be Arsenal and Man City at the top. It's going to be that collection of European pushing / like ambitious mid-table teams, and then you're going to get that bottom cluster, and then maybe like Bournemouth at 12th.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I see it panning out.
I mean, Bournemouth did finish 12th last season as well. And I think,
yeah, well, but that team will like they'll be.
No, you're right.
You'll have like 2 teams who are going to be satisfied being in those kind of in that no man's land at the top of the bottom half of the table.
Yeah, but I mean, from 10th to 14th in the Premier League last season, it was 3 points difference. Wolves, Fulham, Bournemouth, Brighton, Palace, all in there. I mean, Everton would have been a bit further if it weren't for the points deduction, etc., etc. West Ham only slightly above that pack, 3 points above Palace. So it was pretty congested in that middle section. I think fans of a few of those clubs, without putting words in their mouths, I would suspect would probably be quite happy with that again. But I think it's an interesting question, and I think, Luke, you expanding it to look at the various segments, if you like, of the table. I think, we all used to talk about the big 4 in the Premier League. I mean, it seems pretty obsolete now, doesn't it, really, to talk about that, which I think is a good thing. Arsenal pushing for the title, as we expect them to do this season, I think has been good as well. Not as much movement as we would like to see, but perhaps on reflection, a little bit more than maybe one would have predicted 5 to 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think also, if you're talking about the top 4 race, it's pretty easy to make an argument that, there's 8 teams that have a good tilt at top 4. And if you were feeling particularly generous, given that a lot of the conversation, not just from us, but from other people ahead of the season, has been so generous about West Ham, for example, they're going to have to improve a lot to force their way into a top 4 conversation. But it's not as much as you might think. It's only 16 points. Given the signings they've made, the manager they've now got, it's more a question for them about overhauling teams rather than adding a certain amount of points and maybe perhaps conceding a few fewer goals. But my point is just that there was, as you rightly say, Marcus, a proper obvious kind of big 4 for a while in the Premier League, and it's not there now because no one was predicting Villa to finish in the top 4 last season, apart from me, obviously. And below Aston Villa last season, in order, Spurs, Chelsea, Newcastle, and Man United. I mean, no one is losing a wink of sleep if they wake up in May and one of those teams is 4th. So it's a very competitive thing at the top of the table, and we're sitting here talking about this from a position where we just don't know what shape the teams are in yet. We don't know what type of summer they've had. We don't know how far away they are from being ready. Most managers aren't as honest as Eric Ten Hag when they say, look, we're not really ready yet. They'll be bigging their team up, if anything. So we'll wait and see what comes out in the wash. A lot of people are also sleeping a bit on Crystal Palace, who finished the season brilliantly and looked to have a really exciting young manager in Oliver Glasner there too. So, and that's even before you mention Brighton, and their manager is super young, super interesting. There's a lot of teams that could possibly come from nowhere and really do something special as well. So I do think it's going to be a pretty competitive league, but key to that, bringing it all back full circle, is that teams don't get cut adrift at the bottom. And to follow up on Vish's point about if top teams run away with it and start hoovering up ridiculous amounts of points, you do find the teams at the bottom, at least one or two of them are dreadful. If you look back to 2018, 2019, Man City win the league with 98 points. Liverpool get 97 points and don't win the league. What happens? Huddersfield Town basically produced the identical record to Sheffield United from last year. The only difference being that they concede fewer goals. Exactly the same amount of wins and draws, exactly the same amount of points. Fulham were also miles off it, the same way that Burnley were. So it's very similar in terms of how it manifests itself in that way. So if it goes like that, and if we are seeing a trend towards teams running away with it, Man City won 32 of their 38 games that season. Someone's got to pay the price for that. Someone's got to pay the piper.
Yeah.
And it might be one of those promoted teams.
Could it be Southampton, Luke?
I fucking hope so.
Yeah, I thought you might say that. Yeah. So I think, Nathan, I hope that answers your question. I'm pretty sure it does. But just to add a tiny little bit on there, when it came to predicting the sides that would get relegated, I found that quite tough. And I went for Ipswich and Southampton just because it felt like the easiest thing to do. As I stress, I really hope, in particular with Ipswich, with the exciting manager they have and not being up in the league for so long, that is not the case. But I think we often look at managers now rather than teams, because there's so much quality in the Premier League, and we know teams can always attract big players and so on. So we shall see. Anyway, we must move on to the next question, which I believe you have, Vish.
I do, and it comes from Taylor on email. Ooh. Now that Crystal Palace actually look exciting, which mid-table club will have the most boringly predictable season? Marcus, I'm going to throw that at you, actually.
Yeah.
Because I'm the host now.
And do I have to look you in the eye?
No, I'd rather you didn't, actually, because I'm the host now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's like Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, sorry.
Look him in the eye.
Why him? I wouldn't do that on an island. I'd put an island to better use.
He's like Barbara
Streisand. Cricket, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
we have investigated it. It ended up just being cricket. Oh. He's just playing cricket all the time.
Not even the good kind. It's the one with the red ball.
He's a man of the bat.
He's a man of the bat.
He's doing 15-day test matches.
And no kids are into that, so I'm scot-free. Can't be accused of that.
That'll do. I think that, I'll be honest with you, at this early stage, despite what happened last night, I would be very happy for Fulham to have a boring, predictable mid-table finish, quite frankly.
Yeah, the teams I came up with were probably, having said what I've just said about Brighton and their new manager, I think Fulham and Brighton would probably look like they'd be the most mid-table teams.
Brighton's mine, yeah.
Well, I think with Fulham, missing, I say missing, he's gone, João Palhinha.
But you do miss him.
I really do miss him. It left more honourably than the other one I miss still. But I think that because of that, I think again, despite what happened last night, I think Fulham fans would be happy with a mid-table finish. And I think generally, you got a lot of fans. I think again, like if you offered Bournemouth fans, especially losing Solanke, would you settle for a mid-table finish? Finishing in the mid-table of the Premier League is no mean feat. I mean, it is a mean feat if you really want to be a dick about it. But it's a tough old challenge to stay in the league, despite what riches, despite what badge you have on your shirt and so on. But to answer the question without getting dragged this way and that way, I think Wolves could be one as well. I think Gary Neal's done a good job. They've obviously lost a couple of players, or one or two in the transfer market. So I think Wolves, I just can't see them getting relegated. Can they push on? Well, maybe. Of course, it's possible. But again, when you start to look at the teams up there, like Man United finished 8th last season. I think I've got them down to finish something similar as well. Newcastle United, well, are they going to push on? Well, are they going to finish above Chelsea, Spurs, Villa, Liverpool, Arsenal? Okay, there's only so much there. We fancy West Ham to have a good season as well. I think Palace could. You start going through the teams, suddenly you're down to 11th, 12th position. So,
but I think in the way you've answered that question is kind of wrong in a way, because the teams you've mentioned there in Fulham, Bournemouth, and Wolves. them finishing 10th would be them finishing 10th in an exciting way. So
Yeah.
I would say last season, Bournemouth had a very good season.
Yes.
They still lost more games than they won, yeah?
Yeah.
I would say Fulham also had a decent season. They
Yeah.
also lost more games than they'd won,
Uh-huh.
as did Wolves. You know, you were 12, 13, 14 there. And I think the idea of those teams finishing 10th is predicated on actually being quite entertaining. And I suppose like the question is about like the boringness of it, genuinely, it would obviously be terrible if United finished mid-table, but they would finish mid-table in a boring way. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, so I think maybe you've interpreted it just slightly different. It was most boringly predictable season. I
Yeah,
felt like
right.
most sort of obvious. It's kind of like, well, they're not going to do anything. They're just going to be in mid-table. And a lot of fans do kind of look at mid-table obscurity. I mean, hence the word obscurity, because, again, it depends which angle you're looking at it. As I say, from a Fulham fan, mid-table, yeah, obviously, if you said the next 10 seasons Fulham are going to be mid-table Premier League, I wouldn't take that, because that is settling for, you know, sort of mediocrity, if you like, because
Well,
you
the
establish
averages
something.
moves up. Something can't be above average forever.
Exactly.
That becomes the average. But
Indeed.
you guys, I feel like I just divert slightly from you guys specifically on Wolves. I think Wolves would bite your hand off for mid-table. I think they ended the season badly. They missed a huge opportunity to get past Coventry in the quarterfinal of the FA Cup. Could have been massive for them. They've lost Pedro Neto and Max Kilman, two really important players. I know we published the combined Premier League table from the Ramble presenters this week on socials. I actually had Wolves finishing 17th in my prediction.
I can't believe you're disrespecting Gag O'Neill like that.
It pains me to do it, Marcus.
Does it?
You know, I'm his biggest cheerleader.
Well,
but I think the writing isn't on the wall per se, but there is a very, very negative, not negative feeling around the club, because I've not been at the club. But for me, I look down on what they're doing and think this could be a problem for them. The only reason they didn't end the season horrendously was because they beat Luton at home narrowly. They only won one of their last about 10 games. And you chuck the Coventry City defeat at home, by the way, in the quarterfinal of the FA Cup.
Coventry are buzzing, though.
It starts to look a little bit bleak. That's even before you take into account Max Kilman, ever-present centre-back, really important. Pedro Neto, one of their most important players, both gone.
Yeah, good point.
You've got to bear in mind that O'Neill's probably looking at that going, we should be very, very happy if we get anywhere near even 13th or 14th.
All right, that's a fair point about Wolves there, but I still think they'll be okay, though.
I think boringly predictable, not necessarily mid-table, but I think Everton will have a boringly predictable season.
Could do.
That's a fair shout.
They've definitely got it in them.
And I don't think they'll take that to a
but they do all the stuff they do off the pitch makes them not boring. Though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Luke, get us underway in the second half with the next question, old boy.
Yeah, this is from Tom, who's also emailed in. Old school. Respect it. Tom says, we've seen a few clubs release some fun kit reveal videos in the past few weeks. Newcastle fans and David Ginola on a train. Arsenal fans in lots of local restaurants near the Emirates. And that weird Chelsea one with the girl dancing. If you were in charge of a club's marketing for the new season, what would you do to drum up interest in your new kit?
I quite like it when artists who often support the club wear their shirt on stage for like a summer gig. So often about June, July, they'll come on stage with the new kit, or sometimes even in May actually, before the kit's actually been announced or teased. Because often teams wear their home kit for the new season on the last game of the previous season.
So you're thinking for Man United, you're thinking Eamon Holmes comes on the sofa with the new Man United shirt.
Yeah, or the Simply Red bloke, the one who's a bit mad.
Mick Hucknall.
Yeah, Mick Hucknall.
Yeah,
he wears it, or
Ian McShane, he's a Man United fan.
Yeah, or like if Luton was if Luton had a new kit, which they don't because they're sticking with this one, then Andrew Tate could wear it.
Tommy Robinson
could wear it. When he's taking back control, yeah. if it was Luton, and this is specifically to one person from Luton, probably not a Luton fan, but they could put it on the Churchill statue, couldn't they?
Yeah, could do actually.
As they're protecting it.
So
weren't they vandalising it recently, or they would be?
Well, they weren't, were they?
But anyway, I don't want to get into.
To be fair, I don't think anyone was really, but yeah, no, I do quite like that. I also thought about maybe actually getting it into TV shows. The only thing there are very few kind of like weekly TV shows because a lot of stuff streaming now.
Yeah.
So you're just looking at EastEnders, aren't you? Unless
Coronation Street, surely for me. No.
yeah, true. But like for any club, I reckon maybe like the 10 o'clock news. It's obviously quite serious. Generally, has been for a while.
Yeah,
but
has been for a
I don't
while.
know.
Yeah,
not like those unserious days.
I've not enjoyed the current season of the 10 o'clock.
Yeah. Maybe like, I don't know, Christian and Guru Murthy on Channel 4 wearing the new Arsenal third kit.
Why did they turn the news serious all those decades ago?
I know.
It's because people got really into it, didn't they? And they looked at the numbers and thought, oh, people like this, let's give them more of it.
My answer is going to be, I really think Pompey need to seriously think about doing a seafaring Napoleonic era style reveal with the team like singing the sea shanty, climbing up the rigging, hoisting the mainsail, pounding the rum and the grog, and doing like a proper Age of Sail galleon out in the Solent and like do it properly. Like Russell Crowe can be involved. Ridley Scott could do it. Because Michael Eisner, he used to run Disney.
Crowe's a Leeds fan, and he Leeds United, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, but Eisner's got contacts in Hollywood, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So he could probably muster some kind of decent quality reveal, and it could be the most amazing kit reveal ever, and it would really put Pompey on the map. Imagine like Master and Commander, but with Pompey. Be so good.
Yeah,
I
think it would be quite good. And obviously when up the mast it goes, and that's the kit.
Yeah, and they fire. The last thing you see is they fire like 20 cannon at the city of Southampton.
Yeah.
Just exploding through like the docks.
The way you've said that, I don't think that's CGI, is it?
No, it's not.
Right.
No, the last thing you see in this kit reveal, just imagine it, just picture it, close your eyes and picture it. The last thing you see is a massive shell from a 20-pound gun going through Matt Letizier's roof.
There you go.
At least he said roof.
Is he in? Hope not. Might be. Haven't
Might
checked.
well be.
Yeah.
It would just bounce off his tinfoil hat, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would actually. And what you'd see, actually, the last thing you'd see is him quivering under the bed, just shoveling a lot of CBD gummies in his mouth. Have I gone too far, Marcus?
That's the kit. So that's Portsmouth kit lodge,
sorted.
What's
some may say you've gone too far. I mean,
is it Hugh Grant wearing the Fulham kit while being pulled over in Hollywood?
Well, Vish, you say that. I was thinking that it would be a road let's say Stevenage Road near the stadium, or where the stadium's on, down in Fulham. You could have a young lady stood by the side of the road, up pulls a car. She pops her head in the window. Hugh Grant's sat on the seat and he's wearing the new Fulham kit.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that was legitimately your one. Oh,
that's excellent. That is absolutely excellent.
The thing is, I think he would do it. I think he would do it.
He probably would now, actually. Yeah.
He'd probably do it, but he wouldn't let you film it.
Well, you'd have to stop the camera at some point.
Brilliant.
Oh, Leveson, come on.
And then obviously
put it on.
And then later, then you can have some montages of other famous people. Not that Fulham don't have a lot of celebrity fans. Whenever you Google Fulham famous fans, Eminem always appears. I'm not having that.
Does he?
But yeah, I'm much more happy with Richard Osman. Though.
I reckon Alfie got him in for a game, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think so. But anyway, you can have a few things, and then the final scene is, of course, the lady and Hugh Grant sitting in the jacuzzi or the swimming pool at Fulham's, and they're both wearing the kit. And
Richard Osman involved?
Yeah. If Hugh
what
lets
about Daniel Radcliffe?
No, why?
Just because he's on this list of famous Fulham fans. Although Daniel Radcliffe, actor, Harry Potter, though now it seems he's not really interested in football, but he does live in Fulham.
Yeah,
if something doesn't, can anything sum up Fulham fandom any more than that?
Yeah, the example, the rapper or pop star, whatever you'd want to call him. Apparently,
just naming famous fans of our clubs now, aren't we? So should we move on to the next question?
Emily Mateless.
Yeah, there we go. What about this then from Moon on Discord? He says, if there was a stuck on a desert island type reality TV show featuring all current Premier League managers and Jason Tindall, of course, because he'd talk as well onto the show, which manager would be voted out first and who would win? I don't think Jason Tindall would need to talk his way into it, because I think Eddie Howe would just say, you do that one.
Yeah,
I'm staying here.
Yeah, Ed Howe's
but who do you think would win in a desert island type reality show?
That's a good question. I think there's still a lot of love, I think, from the public for Ange Postecoglou. So it was a voting system, which it may or may not be, depending on how...
I kind of read it as a Lord of the Flies type scenario where you had to kind of rise to the top and be the guy.
Oh, I thought about more like Love Island.
Right.
That's interesting.
I would say voted for by your fellow managers, not voted for by the public, because I think that's just a popularity contest. Then I think you've got to make it more interesting than that.
So if it's a popularity contest, I think Ange might do it because I think he'd be good value. Pep Guardiola would just win it, wouldn't he? He would just win it.
You think he's got a bit of the Bear Grylls about him? I think, having said what I just said, I think Eddie Howe's got a bit of the Bear Grylls about him.
Howe's got. I know what you mean by that, but Guardiola, like
I'm Bear Grylls.
But could you imagine Guardiola like foraging away? Yes, you could. Could you imagine him going, okay, I'll go fish, guys. I'll go fish. Yeah, I'm gonna. And he walks off and he creates some net system and just reels them all in. I just think he's got so much going on in that brain of his in terms of creativity and finding different systems and all the rest. I
think he might overthink it and then everyone dies of dysentery.
Yeah,
but he survives.
Yeah, he's very skinny though as well. That's not conducive to a survival situation.
No. Or is it? He doesn't have to eat a lot. He doesn't have to eat a lot.
But you want a bit of meat on the bones. Those islands, they get cold at night.
Yeah.
Well, again,
he'll be constantly burning energy as well, just from worry.
Yeah, that's true. I think Guardiola is a proven winner. Although,
I think what you need to survive...
Sean Dyche has got to be involved, isn't he?
You need survival skills. There's a potential need to be good at fighting. You need to be able to form alliances, and you need to be able to withstand inclement weather and conditions, right?
Thomas Frank?
I think he'd be worried about his hair too much. Wouldn't he? If he ties it up and gets on with it, then I think he'd be good.
I think Frank could defend himself.
Yeah.
I think he could get quite annoying in that kind of setting, I think.
What about Mikel Arteta? He could go a bit like...
So he's the only name I've written down here. He would be kicked out first.
Why? No, hang on. Kicked out by...
Well, he'll be voted out. He'll be voted out first. He's the least likely, I think, to be allowed through to the end to survive as well, because I think they'd all kill him at the very start.
I can see him living on the other side of the island on his own, a bit like Gollum.
But having been ostracised from the main group.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I think he'd have nicked their wallets or done something that's really quirky in like Arsenal fandom world, but in the real world, when you have to deal with real people, it's just like, stop doing that.
Also, like, Mikel,
what are you doing?
Take your roll neck off. You're going to sweat to death.
But I think we've got to establish the rules here, because Luke's talking about you need to be able to fight and all this, but then you're saying, Vish, that you'll get kicked off by everybody. So what are the rules here?
Well, no, because my premise is Love Island-y, I think.
It always is, isn't it? Like when you first came to the Ramble, you said, is it a bit like Love Island? And unfortunately, Pete was interviewing you with his top off. Okay, fine. So you've interpreted that way, okay.
Yeah, but I also think even if I was going by Luke's guidelines, I think Arteta it'd just be very annoying. And he doesn't strike me as a team player.
Mm.
So I think he'd immediately have people's backs up. He'll try and do something to impress Guardiola, who wouldn't care because he's out fishing. And then he'll be left to have to make small talk with the other managers and be like, why are you going around nicking our wallets, you idiot?
Yeah.
I think, and you know, Luke, that I like to reference Baron Samedi as much as possible on this show.
Big time.
I think Guardiola's got an element of that. I just don't think anyone could kill him. If indeed it was a killy show, which obviously you don't often get on television, I think he would survive. I think
more's the pity, innit?
Yeah. Oh dear. So I just can't see past the great man, Guardiola. No matter what the parameters are, because again, even if it was voted for the public, well, I think Ange would have a good chance, but this Guardiola would just fascinate everybody and just how he was. I think he's the man for it.
Thank you for watching a clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an upload, a single upload. Don't miss out on the uploads. The uploads are important.